Are we live?
There we go. Boop, 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 boop,
We're live.
boop.
We're live.
We are.
Yes. Hi all, welcome to this trigger warning video. I am gonna pop out because my technical issues is shit. So I'm gonna freaking sort this out. So I'm gonna leave it to you three for now, but I am gonna be coming back. So let's just get started with suicide. So over to you guys. I'll be back shortly.
Okay. He's going to start off.
Well, since I'm the new guy, I'll let you guys. I'll just roll with whatever you guys tell me to do. How's that?
Oh, that's brave. That's brave. Nick, can you go ahead? Because I've got this slight background noise.
Well, I mean, I think the topic for today, just to clarify, like Adam said, trigger warning, it's mental health and suicide prevention. That's the topic for tonight. I thought we could, just before you came on, Nancy, Richard was talking about the trauma from relating to sort of veterans coming back and the high suicide of that. And I think I was saying, I think I wasn't not aware. I mean, certainly, that is such high numbers, quite shocking. But certainly, there's incredible trauma. I mean, most people are aware of at least a high suicide rate amongst certainly there's one section of people, veterans who come back and the impact of. And what were you saying, Richard? How many were you saying? I was quite.
Well, on average, now this is an average, a rolling average. Between 50 and 55 veterans and first responders attempt suicide. I mean, complete suicide every day. And in the United States, only 50% of the states actually report suicides. So the numbers are way higher because only 50% of the states actually report suicide, and they don't count somebody drinking themselves to death, somebody overdosing on opioids or anything like that. So the number is way out of control. But the scary thing is, that's between 8,000 and 10,000 people a year, and each family probably has 20 or 30 members to the family. So you're looking at, how many hundreds of thousands of people that are because when you commit suicide, all you're doing is transferring your pain from yourself to somebody else. So now instead of that 8,000 or 10,000 people being in pain, now there's hundreds of thousands of people. And that's every year. So, and it's not just a 1 year thing. So it's a big issue, but you don't really hear much about it.
No, I mean, I don't know what the statistics are for veterans in the UK, but I'm sure it might not be as high as that. But certainly, we do. I know that there are shocking statistics of UK veterans who we've come back with trauma, mental health problems, homelessness, and suicide as well. So I think it's definitely but I mean, veterans coming back and suffering mental health problems and suicide is a global problem. And I guess it comes down to really, I guess I don't know, what do you think, Richard, whether it's not getting that support? Are we getting any support? Are they not getting the right support, enough support when they come back? When they transition? I mean, is this part of the wider problem with people?
On my show, I've had over 1,200 interviews. And like I talked about on Nancy's amazing show, thank you for having me on your show, by the way. They teach you how to go to war, but they don't teach you how to come home. And, when the war's over, the war in your head is just starting. And they don't teach you how to deal with losing friends over there, or if you take somebody's life, how do you deal with that 20 years later? And I think a lot of people, like myself, struggle with survivor's guilt, and also veterans and first responders do things and see things that we should never see or do. And then when you finally hang up the uniform for that last time, all you're left is with your memories and maybe a bottle or maybe the end of a barrel. And I think we just need to be able to talk to people, talk and let it out that, I'm not okay. I'm not having a good day. And it's okay not to be okay,
Complex PTSD is rampant, and the complex PTSD diagnosis is limited. It's limited so much because when we speak to someone within our healthcare system about our physical health, the emotional health is not always discussed. And if the emotional health is discussed, well, come on, honey, isn't that a little bit of a reach about your physical condition? We're only here to talk about the physical. If you want to talk about the emotional, you need to go to a psychologist. I'll get you a referral. You'll be able to see them in 4 to 6 weeks. I've mentioned that there's an emotional problem. You're telling me there's no correlation to the physical, there's no causation to the physical, and that I have to wait. So it's in that entry point where we are willing to discuss the complication within our mental system, and we don't get the assistance then because the trauma happens, the indicators are there, the discussion begins, and the professionals don't have the capability. That's my experience. I can only speak from
and a lot of people don't realize that when you're dealing with emotional issues, it causes inflammation, which causes physical issues. It all goes together. And a lot of people think, well, just the physical. No, the mental can physically affect the body a lot of times too.
It's massive. And then there's the spiritual component, because when we begin to lose faith in the system, when we begin to lose faith in our fellow man, or if we lose faith in the creator, whatever we want to call that, call it God, call it universe, call it source, call it spirit, call it creator, whatever name you have for what makes the sun go up and the sun go down, that spiritual crisis is what begins to pummel us. The spiritual crisis. I'm not talking about a religious crisis. I'm talking about a spiritual crisis. Thank you, Carrie. Most professionals don't understand suicide and rock bottom because they haven't experienced it. Within my own family, just mine, is me and my suicide attempt. One son, 2 sons that have spoken to me about theirs. I don't know about the other 2. Their fathers, multiple suicide attempts. Their uncles, multiple suicide attempts. So tell me that it's not part of the family structure because of the environment that they grew up in. The environment in my situation of abuse, and abuse that led to battery.
I wonder if, following Kerry's point, whether there's more effectiveness in these sort of peer-to-peer support networks or groups for people who are suffering sort of, similar to, touch on sort of the AA, we go to a group meeting, and people in the same situation, same challenges, and the same with perhaps PTSD, going to a group where people are in the same situation, they've suffered the same challenges, you can relate to them, you can share, the people have gone for the same as you, whether that's more effective at peer-to-peer than an expert who's got a qualification training but hasn't been through it, doesn't really know that peer-to-peer, where that's where the benefit is. That peer-to-peer group support is a better model, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that we're spiritual people just living a physical existence. And usually, if something's off physically, mentally, or spiritually, everything is going to be thrown off. So you have to think of the total person, not just the one part of a person.
Well, and then Richard, let's toss in the financial wellness.
No.
When you're struggling with financial trauma, which many people are going through right now, they're getting evicted. They're losing their homes. They're losing their cars. They're losing their jobs. Their wife just left them. Their husband said, peace out. I'm out of here. We've got single parents who are coping with massive challenges. And the healthcare system doesn't operate on empathy and compassion because they are trained to disconnect from empathy and compassion. We're not supposed to get close to you, patients, are we?
It's interesting. I've worked for a couple of homeless charities for a while, and they were saying, people who and there's a large number of ex people from the who left the army of a career and they end up homeless. They struggle with that transition and coping that to change from being in the world of the closed world of the army to the reality of having to sort of have an independence, cope with life, and they're saying that people who are homeless, obviously they have they're homeless, but they also often have mental health challenges. They have a lot of them have alcohol, drug dependencies, but it's very easy to say, well, they're all their problems are because of they have an alcohol problem, a drug problem, but actually that's the end result rather than the cause. Actually the cause is often because it's more complex mixture of reasons, but often, it can be people go through, mental health challenges, but caused by a series of things. It can be, like you say, divorce. It could be financial. It could be a job. But things lead to things, and obviously, causes mental health challenges. But I think the wrong way around is a lot of experts very easy to say, well, they've got a alcohol, drug dependencies. So that's causing that. That's the problem. That's a cause, but actually, that's the end result.
That's an indication. That's an indication. That's a trouble light.
Yeah,
that's a trouble light that's blinking. And here in Canada, that trouble light is turned up by the heat of the availability of drugs. And the availability of drugs in Canada has increased because they're being provided for in certain provinces. Provided you need them, they're available. It's the tent cities in my city are heartbreaking. They're filled with not just homeless single people, but families. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So.
And then what happens?
I want to pick up on all this, and I'm finally here. Finally.
Go for it,
Adam. Obviously, I'm going to mention about Kerry's comment, which I absolutely adore. She said she'd rather speak to someone. That's me, and that's me even today. Is when I go to AA meetings, and I know me and Richard had a brief chat about this before we came on air, and yeah, I actually feel more comfortable talking about my alcoholism challenges with another addict over talking to professionals about it. It's just that is that breaking the stigma, or is that causing the problem?
I think I've never been to an AA meeting, but I think that model of being in a room with people who they're going through what you're going through. They're being through what you're going through. Everyone in the room, I presume, at an AA meeting are in the same, they're in the same boat. I mean, that's got to be the best way for anything, to get to get the support is to be in a room with people who know exactly what you're talking about because they've been through it or going through it. I mean, I think that's. Yeah, you can have an expert leading the group, but I think that's got to be better than
absolutely.
Any sort of trauma.
They do.
We are told,
they recommend
that the doctor
to people who. Yeah, they recommend.
Darn.
Go on, Nance.
Sorry, no, I didn't want to cut you off. I was waiting for it to have that moment, and it seemed like it was because of your system, your technology. We are told that the doctor is the key to our healthcare success, and I've been blessed to have.
Oh, this technology is shit.
Good. I've been blessed to have good doctors, and I've been blessed to have doctors who are not as good. Different varying degrees of expert in my life, and I've had many doctors over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that what happens is when we say that there is one key to solving a problem, we miss the opportunity to looking at the other resources that are available, because there are so many support systems. There's supportive medicine. There's supportive peer-to-peer counseling. And when I say supportive, it doesn't alienate one. It doesn't say that a doctor isn't effective, because doctors are effective. They are there to help diagnose and prescribe and do the surgery that is necessary. When you're in a 911 situation and you've broken an arm, you go to a hospital, you go to a doctor. You don't go to a peer support group. There is a time and place. What I'm saying is that there are supportive people in your community who you can access to look at the overall well-being of you so that you can become a better version of yourself. In becoming a better version of yourself, suicide may not have such a calling to you. Richard talked about the devastating effects on the people around you, your friends, your family, your co-workers, that ripple effect that is so damaging, so damaging. The loss of a loved one is an awful experience. As a mother who's lost a child, not to suicide, but as a mother who's lost a child, I can speak to that.
Yeah, and like I lost my friend Mike on Tuesday last week, and I talked to him the night before, and he took his life. And I'm still sitting there wondering, what could I have said? What could I have done? We've had conversations about everything, including mental health, and he still took his life. And so this is fresh, but I've had friends over the years that have taken their lives, and I've helped hundreds of thousands of people with my show, but it's the 3 people that I know I didn't help, that I couldn't help, that haunt me. And so if I'm feeling that, imagine his wife, his kids, his cousins, his friends. So you're talking about millions of people that are going through this stuff every year, and we don't ever talk about the families. We always just talk about the person that takes their lives.
The future impact that Mike had, the people that Mike could have touched if he chose to stay. All of that is no longer available. And that's what I want to implore people to understand, is the value that each and every single person has, the gift that they have, the gift of self, and what they can do for the world, what they can do for the people around them, for their community, for their family, for their friends. You're here for a purpose.
when I said my story, so when I in lockdown, I had to move out of London, and I was staying at my sister's, and her 13-year-old son had Prader-Willis syndrome, a sort of form of autism, and used to get in a very hyped up and very sort of stressed little things, and couldn't contain emotions. And one morning, about 7 o'clock, he was a real sort of state, trying to something, and I managed to get up, and I thought I calmed him down and helped resolve the problem. And I went back to bed, and I said to you, okay, sure, do you want me to stay up? Went back to bed, and then half an hour later, or 45 minutes later, I heard the police outside my bedroom door. And basically, after he'd said he was okay, he had walked, only 13 years old, walked down the beachfront and thrown himself off the beachfront at 13, and they'd left the door open, and someone had called the police, and the police, because he's on a watch list, the police had come to the house and gone, front doors open, gone up into the house, and literally, and I think, when, so it was pretty, I was pretty traumatized, when it happened. And I think, when something like happens to, someone close to you, it's you never stop saying, why, and could I have done something? I think that's the thing, and every single day, since the last 2 years, I think, could I have said something? Could I have done something? Did I miss something? And I guess we know when someone we know does take their life, I think it's inevitable. We think, could I have done something more to prevent it? And I suppose that's the eternal question, isn't it? Is there, is there sign? Is there? I don't know. Do we miss signs? Do we miss those opportunities to offer them that more support and prevent that happening? But yeah, it's inevitably, I think we also.
And that's why I wrote my book, and the last 2 chapters are, what does depression look like? It's not what you think it looks like. And what does suicide look like? It's not what you think it looks like, because a lot of people think, oh, if they're looking down and depressed, then they might be suicidal. But if all of a sudden they're happy, they're taking care of themselves, they're working out, they seem happy, but they did a complete turnaround, that's the person you need to be looking out for, because they know the end is coming. And a lot of people think, well, I know what depression looks like. You really don't know, because do you think Robin Williams' wife knew that the next morning he'd be hanging in his closet?
Exactly.
No, of course, no.
Exactly. It's talking. It's sharing emotions. It's crying.
It's like,
it's expressing that pain. It's crying. It's talking to a brother. It's talking to a cousin.
Suicidal and suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are so many amazing shows out there now. Yeah. Not just this show.
Not many.
There are. Well, we got to talk to each other. We got to talk more about the football, less about the football game, and more about this game.
And I think, for me, because I can only speak for me, I have to be vulnerable. I put out on my page the other day, guys, I'm struggling. Since Mike's death, I actually thought about taking my own life. And until my wife reeled me in, she said, you're the comeback coach. You got to be able to come back. But I put it out on my page, guys, I'm struggling. I need help. I'm laying in bed crying and weeping, and my wife is holding me. I'm not strong today. I need your help. And I think that's where we need to be a little bit more open and vulnerable and honest and say, guys, I'm having a rough day. And the people that are there for you are going to be there for you as long as you're open and honest.
I think what, turn back a few decades, saying what you just said, Richard, would have been a sign of weakness, 2-3 decades ago. But actually, I think that's nowadays that's a sign of strength, isn't it? Being able to have a confidence to say you're struggling and you're vulnerable. That's actually the ultimate, that's something to be admired and respected. I think it's where whereas you would have like I say 20 years ago 70 70s 80s you never said that, and it would have been frowned on, looked down. I think naturally there's a lot more respect for people who have the confidence and courage to say I'm struggling.
But hopefully one day, looking forward, hopefully one day somebody's going to be in that same position and they're going to be like, he went through it. So let me reach out to him because he knows how I'm feeling. So even like Nance said, that you never know who you're going to touch. And suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So if we just make it another day, we don't know whose life we're going to be able to touch, because somebody might be alive today because of a choice you made 20 years ago. So.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, definitely.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Richard. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I remember it was a few months back now. I wasn't well. I had a really bad cough, and it was actually Nancy that saved my life. Obviously, I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, because the last time I was suicidal and attempted it was 2019. But I attempted to I actually put eucalyptus oil in my drink, and I was literally seconds from taking the drink. But I thought, you know what? Get in touch, see if it's actually safe. And she went, do not drink that.
We don't know. There's so many things that we don't know, and Google is effective, and good friends are the blessing in our lives. Be a good friend to somebody. Go over to their house for a visit. Social isolation, the years that we locked down, the years that we could not go out, that it prevented us from having that natural human contact. And now we're just beginning to bridge that gap. We're just beginning to become comfortable to just show up at someone's house. That's a beautiful thing to do. Do you remember 15, 20 years ago, before cell phones, before text messages, when we simply went over and knocked on the door and said, hey, you home?
Yeah, but also, we're not even in the same country. And sometimes I'll just reach out and I'll be like, Adam, my brother, I'm so proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. I love you and I appreciate you. And sometimes you don't know if that text message or that direct message is going to help that person. And you're not even in the same hemisphere. But, so that's the blessing that we can be to other people. And it doesn't take much. It takes 5 seconds to shoot off a text or to say, hey, Adam, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. And I love everything you're doing. It doesn't take much, but it might mean that it might be the difference between somebody hanging themselves. Because imagine if, and I keep going back to Robin Williams because I love Robin Williams, but imagine if he would have got a text 5-10 minutes before he committed suicide.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because look at Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park. He literally 2 days before he took his own life, he was on a radio station and he was opening up about how nobody picked up on it.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Even Chris Cornell.
It just shows the type of world we're living in.
Yep. Even Chris Cornell from Soundgarden and Audio Slave, same thing. Who knew an hour later he'd be hanging from his closet? If he would have
heart-to-heart conversations, conversations, and showing that you care. If you've got leftovers in your fridge that you're not going to eat today, put them in a Tupperware container. Go to your next door neighbor. And if they don't want it, go to the next door neighbor down there. Carry it to a friend's house. Freeze it if you can't do it today, and deliver it tomorrow.
Yeah.
There are so many things that you can do to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I see you. I see you. You matter. You make a difference. those are the words that just make such an impact. Simple words. Thank you cards, like you wrote to me, Richard. Wow. Handwritten thank you cards. I save them all. Every single one, because that does mean so much to me. And when
Yeah,
those thank you cards fade, I reach out to the person that wrote it to
yeah,
me and said, you know that thank you card you sent me?
I'm a
It's
fan of
faded.
those. Yeah. I think, I love cards and now it's all,
yeah,
messaging and social media, but I still send physical cards and my mother regularly sends me cards. And yes, she's my mother, but sends me cards saying how great I'm a son. And I think, doing, and I send cards to my son in Wales. And I think, that, perhaps we've now we've lost touch with it. I think actually that is particularly a nice that sort of we've lost touch, I think, of doing that. That's a nice thing to do, I think, isn't it? Like you say, to any form, text or someone else is great, but I think a card, I think there's nothing better than getting a card where someone's taken time to write something and ask after you and compliment someone. Yeah, no, I'm a real fan of that.
No, and because it takes time to write out a card physically, put it in the envelope, whether you lick it or not, that's up to you. To put a stamp on it, to go to the post office.
I agree.
It means you actually thought about the person.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's not just, I could just shoot off a text, but because you actually took time to think about what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So, and I think my cost, like when I send out a card, I think my cost is like $1.
Yeah.
But I mean, just think, because I spent $1. Most of the time when I send out a card, they put it on their refrigerator and it stays for years. So for $1, you might save somebody's life just by saying, hey, just wanted to say thank you for your friendship and I love and appreciate you.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And you change the world. So and you can change the world. Absolutely. So what is the ROI on that?
Yeah.
Well, that's Absolutely. It's a lifetime value, isn't it? You can't put a price on it. $1 to send a card, but actually, the real value is it's endless. If it's on that fridge, that's the message forever. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, it's all about what you can do. Yeah, it's what to do. If that makes sense.
When we look at the literature that we're reading, when we look at the music that we're listening to, there is a mass connection to that. If you hear somebody's playlist and they're playing music that is less than loving, keep an eye out, just take a peek. One of my favorite bands is Blue October. Their music is wonderful. It's got great sound. It's got great lyrics, and it inspires me to go out every day and do greatness. The books that I read inspire me to go out and do greatness. Garbage in, garbage out. What you feed to your mind, what you feed to your body, what you feed to your soul is going to give you an output. If you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Take care of you first. It's not selfish to practice self-care.
But also, if you're a parent, because here in the States, in my town, I'm in charge. It's called the DARE. It used to be called the DARE program. Now it's called the LEAD program. But, on average in the United States, I don't know how it is abroad, but 5,000 adolescents attempt suicide every day.
Wow.
A day. So I'm a parent. I'm 55 years old, and I got a 22-year-old, 19-year-old, and I got a 12-year-old. I'm on more social media platforms than they are because I want to know what they're watching. I want to know what they're listening to. I want to know who they're talking to. And excuse my language, guys, but if I'm paying for the fucking phone, I should be able to say, my kids, what are you watching? What are you listening to? It's an invasion in my privacy, yet whatever. When you pay your own phone, that's when you can have your privacy. But if I want to know, if there's a YouTube trend or if there's a TikTok trend where people are killing themselves, I want to know about it. And I think as a parent, we need to know what our kids are doing and what they're listening to, what they're watching, and who they're talking
about. I'm 100%.
Yeah, I had a friend whose teenage daughter committed suicide after she was being bullied online through social media, and it just she didn't share it, and it came too much, and the parents, everyone said, how did no one realize? The parents didn't know what she was, what she was looking at on the phone. And I think, that brought it home. I 100% agree. We phone, social media, roles as parents, we should, we should know what we're looking at, who we're talking to, because.
Speaking statistics. Yeah, speaking statistics, Richard, what you were talking about suicide is, and this is from top of my head, what I actually found out, just January this year alone, over 40,000 people killed themselves. Just January of this year, over 40,000, and 73% of that were men.
Is that in the UK, Adam? I guess you're talking about it.
Yeah.
But that's quite interesting that it's 73%, 75% male. I mean, I knew that, men, there are much higher statistics of men committed suicide than women, but that's a big amount, isn't it? It's 3/4 higher men than women.
Well, and I've also found out, that 1 out of every 5 men have been sexually abused, and only 3% of those actually report it.
Yeah.
So the numbers are way, 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 way higher than what we're dealing with. And so you're looking at, if that's just UK, look at worldwide.
Yeah.
And so, we have to really start men. I can't speak for women, and I can only speak for guys. If I see Adam posting stuff, and one day he's posting happy pictures that he's drawing, and then he starts posting some crazy shit, I should be able to say, Adam, bro, you okay, dude? And I asked you that today, right? I texted you today. I'm like, are you okay, bro? You doing okay? He's like, yeah, somebody pissed me off, but I'm okay. But I should be able to do that because Adam knows that I'm there for him. And if you're having a bad day, I should be able to say, your post didn't look right. Are you okay? And I think once men, we realize, okay, we're allowed to talk like that for each other. We're less likely to take our own lives if we know we got 3 men in our corners that have our back, right?
It's interesting because I've got a lot of friends, and but I think
just start itself, Richard. Are you are you okay? It's the least most asked question ever.
I was going to say, Adam, you're the only. I've got a lot of friends, but you're the only person who regularly just messages me and says, Nick, how are you? How's things going, Nick? Are you okay? And I've got a lot of friends, good friends, but you're the only one person I know who does that regularly. Just messages me and says, Nick, how are you? Are you okay? And it's like, wow, and I always think it's, sometimes, most of the time, Adam, I say, yeah, it's good, I'm fine. But sometimes I think I have a bit stressful week. But it's such and I always think every time you do that, Adam, I think, wow, that's so nice just for someone to ask, how I am, happening regularly. And it's true, why is it? But when
exactly.
I know so many people, it's just there's only one person who regularly messages me, and I need to do it more as well. I think to my friends. I mean, I realize actually I need to do that more. Maybe I'm not doing enough, but it's such a simple thing.
See, I've got every week. Not every week. Every day, I've got 7 people. 7 people I actually check in on, and obviously you're always there, Nick. Always. Because out of all of us, you're the one I've known the longest. So, yeah.
well, it's
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
And I think it's just paying attention, because we don't know each other. I mean,
Absolutely.
really, we've never ate dinner and hung out. But if we're watching each other's profiles and we're like, that picture
Maybe
he
we
drew
should.
was awesome yesterday, and it was all bright and sunshiny, but the picture that he drew today was kind of fucked up. Should I just say, bro, are you okay? Because I'm paying attention. And I think with social media, we kind of stopped paying attention.
Do you know, I need to get back to that. I actually need to get back to my drawings. I really do.
Yeah, don't give it up. That's a positive outlet for you. You should.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you guys, as the podcast host and an interviewer, why do you think guys are more likely to commit suicide than women?
I mean, I think it's. I think it's still, that it's still this, women. I think women are more open to talking generally. Women on women. I think there's still this. Maybe it's changing slowly, but I think there still is this. I don't know. It's macho, stereotypes, about men, what men talk about, not talking, and I think things are changing, but I think it's still culturally there's women. I certainly see it in women I know and the men I know. Women talk more. Talk amongst themselves more. They're more open, share problems. And I think men just we don't. I mean, I see that from all the men I know personally, just my own group. I can see it. I think it's. I think maybe things are changing slowly, but I think I think it's so long men have men and women and the way we what we talk about, what we don't, and and I think it's I don't know. I think it's.
I want to echo that, Nick. I really do, because there is that stigma attached to men that, and obviously I'm not being sexist here. I'm not, but we men have been indoctrinated and brainwashed, especially not just by media and society, but women in general, to be these masculine, dominant protectors. We have, and yes, you're right, Nick. It is slowly changing, but it's not doing it quick enough.
No,
it is not, and we should have that right. We should have that safe space. Like, I've looked for years up and down my area, and I'm going to say it, there's fuck all. There's not a safe space for men when it comes to opening up about their vulnerability. There isn't. And there should be. There absolutely should be. And this is just... It pisses me off. It really does, that there should be something, because women get all this support. Men don't. And
okay, so then
you're right. Women are always in groups. They're always talking to each other. They're always gossiping.
So let's talk about.
But men are very quick if they. Sorry, Richard. I was just going on one here, but obviously men, because obviously women, when they meet, they go for a cup of coffee. No, when women meet, they go for a cup of coffee, or they get the child and they go out to the park or go for a walk. Men, if they want to talk, pub. It's always the pub or clubbing, and that's not good enough. This is one reason why I stopped drinking. Because of things like this. Yeah. Because when do people know if men are going to be vulnerable? They go for a walk in the park or go for a cup of coffee. They don't. They go to the pub.
And then if a bunch of guys get together and you hang out for a couple hours, your wife will, so how was your day? You're like, okay, what'd you guys talk about? Nothing. We talked about, we talked about the current footballer or what team is what we watch sports, but did you talk about anything? Did you talk about the divorce they're going through? No, it never even came up.
No, 100%. You're right, Richard. And for us, men, that's almost normal. But when, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's. Yeah, talk about anything of substance, of like you say, if a friend's going for divorce and we get together, and then, do we talk about that? But the friend who's going for the divorce, or do you just keep it light and very light, like often I think men do. It's yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's just I don't know where Nance is gone, but I'm sure she'll be back. So yeah. I don't know where we go from here. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, so then how do we
just keep talking?
Speaking as men, if there are women listening, because there are going to be women listening, how can they get their husbands to open up? Like for me, my wife will tell me, and I'm in recovery 35 years, she'll tell me, you're acting like an ass. You need to get to a meeting. And my wife, we have that relationship.
I was about to respond to that, Richard. I was about to.
So then how?
No, Richard, I was literally about to respond to that.
So then how do we
what can they do
men to open up to our women?
Understand straight. I just think, like, what I was going to say is I'm going to take a leaf out of the take that here. I really am. I'm going to take a leaf out of there. If women are to understand men that much, they should need to have a little patience. Yeah. But on a serious note, go on.
I was going to say, I remember when I was with my wife, who I'm not with anymore, and she used to say, talk to your, she'd say, your friend, he's going through that problem, that, they split, divorce, whatever, have you talked to him? And I'd say, I can't, we don't talk. No, I don't feel comfortable talking about it to him. And she said, that's ridiculous. You need to talk to him. He's your best friend with her. And I think perhaps, for women, they would straight away have a conversation. I think, and I remember saying myself, I can't talk to him about that. That's not the sort of thing to talk about. I think maybe sometimes women have to push us to, I don't know, we wouldn't feel comfortable talking about what we should. We're men, so what? We should be talking about these things with our women. Maybe. I know my ex-wife, she used to push me and say, no, talk to him about it. Doesn't matter, you're men. Oh.
And we're not that complicated. Yeah. Guys are not that complicated. No. We just want, and guys, and excuse me for my language, but I asked an 80-year-old man, I said, or 80-year-old wife.
Just say it.
I said, how do you stay married? She said, I keep his stomach full. I keep his balls empty. and I treat him like he's the king of the house. And when I treat him like the king, he treats me like the queen. So all we want to do is be loved, appreciated, and cared about in our own home. Because in the United States, they say, I'm not going to go out for milk if I have a cow at home. So we're not that complicated, guys. We just want to feel loved and appreciated and have a couple needs met.
Yeah. No, I agree. You summed it up well. It's true.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you guys.
Totally agree.
What do you guys do to keep your cup full for your own mental health?
I mean, it's interesting. I think I've become more aware over the last sort of few years of how I need to be better asking my friends how they are, and then in return I think build a relationship where they ask how am I, like, you know, like what Adam does to me. I'm become more aware that I need to, for my well-being and mental health, I need to build those relationships where I can ask my club friends how they are, but also, you know, they'll ask, you know, they'll also ask how I am, and that, you know, Adam being the prime example. But I think, you know, I'm aware that I need to have those relationships with people. I need to, you know, I need to be able to have honesty and openness where, you know, I can talk about these things. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. I just feel like us men, we just need to save space. We need to save space where we can open up about exactly how I feel. And Richard, you don't need to apologize if you're going to swear. Just fucking do it. Because at the end of the day, you're expressing how you feel. And if it's going to offend someone, that's their problem. That's their problem, because we have a right to express how we feel.
I just don't want to get canceled like everybody else is getting canceled.
bleep the bleep machine.
Yeah.
I swearing every freaking week. I swear every week. And we've been going for almost 4 years.
What about you, Richard? I mean, you know, bounce back at you. What sort of
Anyway.
your, you know, what do you do for your well-being? What's your, you know, in the mental health in that way? What's your key?
I read a lot. I've got 18 books going right now, 2 audio books. I spend time with my family. I make sure that 6 p.m. and I work from 6 in the morning to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. I shut my phone off. If you need to get in touch with me, you can call my wife. And that's the way I keep my mental health. I play video games. I'm a video game player. I like to play guitar. So it's not just all work. I make sure that 12 hours of work, and then I have playtime. And I think, you know, the only difference between a man and a boy is the price of his toys. So I think if you're not playing, even as an adult, then you're missing out on a lot of stuff, a lot of fun stuff in life, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you got to have something you're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is in life; it could be anything. But you know, you've got to have something that gets you excited, and you know, it's a distraction from the work, and the work stress or business stress is something we can switch off, and you can do. You know, you're really passionate about your thing. You know, and whether it's games or any hobby, interest, sport. You know, but yeah, having something you really get excited and passionate about. You know, and that's so important.
But how many people actually have quiet time? How many people actually shut their phone off or shut the computer off and be like, I could do it tomorrow. Tomorrow it's going to be there. And I think if you don't have any quiet time or any downtime, then your mind is always going and you're not going to have any kind of peace if you don't even disconnect for a little bit.
Maybe that's the thing. I think we think, you know, yeah, I think, you know, we need to be busy to be productive, you know, but yeah, we need quiet time is as important as, you know, being busy and achieving is important, but actually quiet time is as important as that, isn't it? It's more important. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually have it because just the other day, obviously I had my phone in my pocket. Yes, it was on loud. And obviously, yeah, it was pinging every time I was getting a notification or whatever, but I had it on loud in case of actual emergencies, like, for example, if the school rang.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was pinging, like, obviously I was out with our 9-month-old son and my partner, and even though it was pinging, I was completely ignoring it because my priority was going for that walk with my partner and my son. So yeah, I do have time away.
No. And I think that's it for me. That's an important thing. And I tell people, listen, if you need to get in touch with me after 6 o'clock, I mean, of course, there's certain things where somebody might like, hey, you want to come on a podcast? Sure, let me do it. But most of the time, listen, if you want to get in touch with me, you call my wife. She's got her phone on her. I want to make sure that I'm cutting off. And also, even if it's during the day, and because me and my wife, we work from home, and we work in pretty much the same space. if she's talking to me, I put my phone down. I take my reading glasses off and I look at her and talk to her, to where I'm not looking at my phone while she's trying to talk to me, because then she's not feeling that she's being heard. And there's a difference between listening and hearing. And a lot of men don't know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, good point.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Well, I don't know if Nancy is coming back on. I'm unsure. Like, obviously, I've messaged her, but I've got nothing. So, should we wrap this up?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I think it was a
Awesome.
Good session. I think it's a sensitive subject, but I think it's an important one, and I think it's just having that honesty, isn't it, to be able to talk about these things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And
well, next week. Yeah, well, next week, Nick will be back. Obviously, Ashley will be back also, and Nancy and Richard. I'm actually wanting to invite you back as well, because we was touching on PTSD earlier today, and we're actually going to be talking about that. It's PTSD versus CPTSD through trauma.
Okay, and then if we could talk for a minute,
So at the same time,
I would like to talk about with PTSD and complex PTSD. Let's talk about traumatic brain injuries, and then something we never talk about is CTE.
Absolutely, yeah. Well,
let's do it.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Well, it won't just be the 4 of us or 5 of us. There's actually going to be 8 of us on camera next week.
Wow.
So it's going to be a good panel.
Wow, that's a proper panel. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, that is a panel. That is a panel. So yeah, Right. Well, I'll wrap this up. I'll end the stream now, and everyone subscribe and share. So we'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Richard. Pleasure as always.